All right, so you want to be a dividend analyst, huh? Well, you've come to the right place.
That's right. We're diving deep today, getting you prepped for that interview.
And you sent us some great stuff to work with some sample interview questions.
Yeah, and a career guide. Good thinking.
So let's use all this as like our raw material for this deep dive,
That's right. We'll be revealing some insider secrets.
giving you proven ways to really craft standout answers.
And we might even touch on how RoleCatcher's AI can give you a real advantage in this process.
Oh, absolutely. So first things first, what exactly does a dividend analyst actually do?
Well, it sounds pretty straightforward, right? I mean, it's right there in the name.
Dividends.
Right. You're going to be calculating those dividends.
Assessing like all sorts of financial systems, I
You
imagine.
got it. And you'll be forecasting those dividend payments.
And this is all about like identifying risks.
It's all connected. It's about figuring out, is this company healthy enough to keep paying those dividends?
Got it. And just to give folks a little picture of the work environment, what's it like?
Well, think office setting.
Okay, so not out there building bridges.
Definitely not. This is all about focus, accuracy, lots of interaction with different teams, stakeholders.
So people skills are important too.
Absolutely. All right, ready to jump into those interview questions?
Let's do it. So this first one, it's a classic. Can you tell us about your experience analyzing dividend payout ratios?
Okay, this is where a lot of people kind of trip up, you know?
Yeah, I can see that.
They start listing every single project they've ever worked on.
Right, like a laundry list.
But that's not what the interviewer's really after.
So it's not about like bragging about everything you've done.
No, they want to know how you think.
How you use this data to make decisions.
Exactly. So think about a time when you were looking at those payout ratios.
And you had that aha moment.
Exactly. Like maybe you saw this company with a consistently high payout ratio. What does that tell you?
Well, I guess they're pretty mature, focused on keeping those shareholders happy.
Exactly. Or maybe you spotted a declining trend. What could that mean?
Red flag. Some financial strain, maybe?
Bingo! So it's all about connecting those dots, seeing the bigger picture.
Okay, makes sense. Now, what if the interviewer throws a curveball?
Oh, you know they love to do that.
Like, say they ask, what are some red flags to watch for when you're analyzing those payout ratios?
Classic follow-up. They want to see if you really understand the nuances.
Okay, so what would you say to that?
Well, you could talk about unsustainable payout ratios, like the company's paying out more than it's actually earning.
Oh, yeah, that's not going to end well.
Right, or maybe sudden changes in their payout policy.
Could be trying to hide something.
Maybe not. But it definitely warrants a closer look.
And this is where I think RoleCatcher's AI could come in handy.
Oh, absolutely. It can help you anticipate those tough follow-up questions.
So you're not caught off guard.
Exactly. And it lets you practice those responses so you're super confident.
Nice. Okay, next question. How do you stay up to date on financial news and market trends?
All right. With this one, you want to show that you're a lifelong learner.
Like you're genuinely interested in this stuff.
Exactly. Always learning, growing, and you want to mention credible sources.
Like you're not just getting your news from, random blogs.
Right. Think CFA Institute publications, reputable journals, things like that.
That shows you're serious. You're committed to your craft.
Exactly. And you know what else the career guide emphasizes?
What's that?
Networking. Building those relationships,
Right.
That's gold.
So true. Going to industry events, connecting with experts online.
All of that. It helps you stay informed and opens doors you wouldn't believe.
Okay, let's move on to question 3. Can you walk us through your process for analyzing a company's dividend history?
Okay, here it's all about showing you have a structured approach.
Like you're not just winging it.
Definitely not. Think of it like building a case.
Okay, I like that. So what's our evidence?
First, we gather all the data, right? Past dividend payouts, payout ratios, company announcements.
So lots of numbers to crunch.
Then we analyze those trends, look for patterns, anything unusual.
Like we're telling a story, but with numbers.
Exactly. Now, what kind of plot twist should we be looking for in that story?
Good question.
Well, any big shifts in those payout ratios.
Could mean they're changing their financial strategy.
Or maybe their overall health isn't so great. Also, look at the timing of their announcements.
Are they consistent? Or are there delays, weird changes?
Those are all clues. And you know what? RoleCatcher's AI can be a huge help here, too.
Really? How so?
It can analyze your practice answers, give you feedback on how to structure them.
So you're presenting your analysis in the most impactful way.
Exactly. It's like having a personal editor for your interview answers.
Pretty cool. Okay, let's move on to question 4. How do you determine the dividend yield for a stock? This one seems pretty straightforward. It's just a formula, right?
Yeah, you got the formula? Annual dividend per share divided by the market price. Simple.
Easy peasy.
But remember, the interviewer's not just testing your math skills here.
There's got to be more to it.
They want to see if you really grasp the meaning behind those numbers. The why.
So don't just spit out the formula. Explain what that yield actually tells us.
Right. Like, how does it help investors compare different stocks?
Mhm.
Why do income-focused investors care about this number?
Okay, so connect it back to the real world. Make it relevant.
Exactly. You could say something like, dividend yield helps investors compare the income potential of different stocks and figure out which ones fit their goals.
Ah, I see. It's all about painting that bigger picture.
And that reminds me of something from the career guide. It talks about building strong financial modeling skills.
Okay, so not just knowing the formulas, but being able to build those models.
Exactly. If you can build them, you can interpret them, you can forecast those dividend payments, assess the risks.
That makes you a much stronger candidate.
Absolutely. Okay, ready for the next question?
Hit me with it.
How do you evaluate a company's ability to continue paying dividends? Now, this one gets into the nitty-gritty of financial statements.
We need to connect those financial dots.
You got it. It's not just about looking at the current dividend. It's about, can they keep paying this over time?
Like, is it sustainable?
Exactly. And that's where those financial modeling skills we talked about come in handy.
Okay, so walk me through this. What are we looking at?
We're analyzing key metrics: earnings stability, cash flow, debt levels, even industry trends. We need the whole picture.
So it's not just about seeing the numbers, but really understanding what they mean.
Right. We're interpreting the data, making sense of it. Like, one metric is the debt-to-equity ratio, tells you how much they rely on borrowing.
If it's high, could be a red flag.
Could be. Might mean they're strapped for cash, might impact those dividend payments.
And how about cash flow? How important is that?
Cash flow is king, especially when we're talking dividends. We want to see consistent, strong cash flow from operations.
So that means they can cover expenses and still have enough to pay dividends.
Exactly. And those financial modeling skills, remember, they help us project that cash flow into the future.
So we can make smarter recommendations.
Exactly. But we can't forget about external factors, things like regulatory changes or, a sudden economic downturn.
Those could really shake things up.
Oh, yeah. They can definitely impact a company's ability to pay those dividends, so it's complex.
You need a good grasp of financials and a keen eye on the bigger economic picture.
Definitely not a job for the faint of heart, but that's what makes it so interesting, so rewarding.
I can see that. Okay, on to question 6. How do you determine the appropriate dividend payout ratio for a company?
Okay, this one's less about crunching numbers and more about strategy.
Ooh, I like that. So what is the payout ratio again?
It's the percentage of earnings that gets paid out as dividends. It tells us a lot about the company's overall financial strategy.
So it's not about finding the right answer. It's about understanding all the factors that go into that ratio.
Exactly. Like, a fast-growing company might have a lower payout ratio. They're reinvesting those profits to fuel their growth.
Makes sense. They're playing the long game.
Right. But a mature, stable company, they might have a higher payout ratio, rewarding those shareholders.
So it's like we're telling that story with numbers again, but this time, the payout ratio is just one chapter.
Love that analogy. You have to consider the whole narrative to make a good recommendation.
And I bet RoleCatcher can help us here too, right?
Absolutely. AI can analyze your answers, point out areas where your analysis could be stronger.
Or maybe your recommendations aren't fully justified.
Right. It's like having a mentor helping you craft that perfect argument.
Okay, this next question always feels a little tricky. Have you ever recommended a dividend stock that did not perform well? How did you handle the situation? Yikes.
Yeah, this one's tough, but it's important. The interviewer isn't looking for perfection. They're looking for self-awareness.
Like, can you own your mistakes?
Exactly. And can you learn from them? Can you show that you've grown?
Okay, so how do we answer this one?
Choose an example where you can demonstrate those qualities. Like, maybe you missed a crucial risk factor.
Or maybe you misjudged the company's financial health.
Right. But here's the key. Explain what you learned from that experience.
Like, how did you change your process?
Exactly. How did you incorporate that lesson into your analysis going forward?
So it's not about dwelling on the mistake. It's about showing how you grew from it.
Turning a negative into a positive. And, you guessed it, RoleCatcher can help here too.
Of course it can.
Practice your response with its AI feedback, make sure it's honest, insightful, and really showcases your growth as an analyst.
Perfect. All right, next up. How do you analyze a company's dividend growth rate? Seems pretty straightforward, just calculating the percentage change over time, right?
Yeah, the calculation's easy, but like we've been saying, it's about more than just the math.
There's always a deeper meaning.
They want to understand why that dividend growth matters. What does it tell us about the company's strategy?
And their commitment to their shareholders.
Exactly. So instead of just giving the formula, talk about what a consistent growth rate signifies.
Like, it shows they're committed to rewarding those shareholders over the long haul.
Even when times are tough. And this actually connects back to another point in the career guide.
Which is?
Communication. You need to be able to articulate these insights clearly and concisely.
You have to be able to tell the story behind the numbers.
Right. Make it understandable, make it compelling. That's crucial for success as a dividend analyst.
Okay, let's tackle this last question. This feels like the big one. How do you determine if a company's dividend is sustainable? It's like putting everything we've talked about together.
You're absolutely right. This is the ultimate test.
So what are they looking for here?
They want to see if you can connect all the dots, the financials, the industry trends, the company's specific situation.
And then make a judgment call about whether those dividends can keep flowing.
Exactly. So be ready to paint a complete picture.
Highlight those key metrics we talked about: cash flow, debt levels, earnings.
And don't forget those external factors that can come into play.
Oh, right, those curveballs.
Exactly. But remember, it's not just about listing a bunch of data points. It's about weaving them into a story.
A story that supports your conclusion. And of course, I know you're going to say it, RoleCatcher can help here too.
Well, of course. Its AI can analyze your answers, see where your argument could be stronger.
And help you really polish your presentation style.
Exactly. It's like having a personal coach in your corner, helping you deliver that knockout performance.
All right, before we dive into some career insights from the guide, let's take a quick break.
Sounds good. We'll be back in a flash with more tips to help you ace that dividend analyst interview.
Don't go anywhere. All right, we're back. Ready to keep diving into this world of dividend analysts.
Let's do it.
I have to say, it's been pretty insightful so far, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've just scratched the surface, really.
I know, right? There's so much more to uncover.
So much depth to these questions. And remember, the interviewers are going to dig deeper.
Oh, yeah. They're going to want to see if you can really think on your feet.
So it's not just about memorizing answers. It's about truly understanding those concepts, being able to apply them to different situations.
Like they throw a tricky scenario at you. You need to be able to think it through.
Exactly. Like build that mental toolbox of financial knowledge and analytical skills.
So you're ready for anything. Okay, speaking of which, let's dive into some of those career insights from the guide, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
One thing that really stood out to me was the emphasis on continuous learning.
Oh, absolutely. This field is constantly evolving. If you're not learning, you're falling behind.
Makes sense. So what are some ways to stay ahead of the curve?
Well, the guide talks about certifications like the CFA or the FRM.
Yeah, those are pretty big ones in the finance world, right?
They are. They show you're serious about your professional development, that you're committed to excellence.
So it's like an investment in yourself and your career.
Exactly. And you know what else?
Hmm.
It can open doors to some incredible opportunities.
Oh, yeah. Got to have those credentials sometime.
Absolutely. And speaking of opportunities, the guide also highlights the importance of networking.
Ah, yes, networking. The dreaded word.
Well, it doesn't have to be dreaded. Think of it as building relationships.
Okay, that sounds better. Less scary.
It really is about connecting with people, sharing knowledge, and learning from each other.
So like going to those industry conferences,
Yeah.
connecting with folks on LinkedIn.
Exactly. Engaging in online forums, things like that. You never know where your next opportunity might come from.
That's so true. It's all about building those connections, right?
Absolutely. And one more thing the guide emphasizes that I think is so important.
Okay, lay it on me.
It's about showcasing your passion for the work.
Ah, passion. That intangible quality.
But it's so important. Interviewers want to see that spark, that genuine enthusiasm.
So they're not just looking for robots who can crunch numbers. They want someone who's excited about this stuff.
Exactly. Someone who's eager to learn, to contribute, to make a difference.
So how do we show that passion in an interview?
Well, be prepared to talk about what drew you to this field in the first place. What do you find fascinating about dividends and investments? What are your goals?
So it's about telling your story, connecting it to the role.
Exactly. And wouldn't you know it, RoleCatcher can help here too.
Shocker.
Its AI can analyze your responses, help you craft answers that not only showcase your knowledge, but also that passion, that energy.
So it helps you make a lasting impression.
Exactly. It helps you stand out from the crowd.
Now, I know we've talked a lot about RoleCatcher and its amazing AI, but before we wrap up, I wanted to circle back to one of those earlier questions about dividend payout ratios.
Oh, yeah, this can be tricky. What did you want to touch on?
I was thinking about those red flags we mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things that might make us question a company's dividend sustainability.
Oh, yeah, like a sudden drop in the payout ratio or a company paying out more than they're earning. Those are definitely warning signs.
Exactly. And it made me wonder, how do we balance those red flags with the company's overall strategy?
That's a great point. You have to look at the whole picture.
Right, because sometimes those seemingly negative signals could actually be part of a bigger plan.
Exactly. Like maybe the company is intentionally reducing its payout ratio to reinvest in growth opportunities.
So it might look bad on the surface, but in reality, they're making a smart long-term move.
Precisely. Or maybe they've taken on some debt to finance a strategic acquisition.
Which could lead to bigger profits down the road.
Exactly. So it's all about context. You have to analyze those red flags in light of the company's overall financial strategy and their long-term goals.
That's a really great point. It's like detective work, isn't it?
It really is. You have to gather all the clues, piece them together, and then make a judgment call.
And that's what makes this role so challenging and rewarding. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground on this topic. Yeah, we've really dived deep.
But before we move on, I want to touch on one more thing that I think is crucial for anyone preparing for a dividend analyst interview.
What's that?
It's about demonstrating your understanding of the industry as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. You can't just be a numbers person.
Right, you need to understand the trends, the regulations, the key players.
And the risks. Don't forget about those.
Oh, yeah, those are important. So how can the listener showcase that broader industry knowledge in an interview?
Well, they can talk about their favorite industry publications.
Like the Wall Street Journal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or Bloomberg Financial Times. They can mention thought leaders they follow,
People who are shaping the conversation around dividends and investing.
Exactly. And they can talk about specific trends they're watching.
Like the rise of ESG investing, for example.
That's a great one. Or maybe the impact of rising interest rates on dividend-paying stocks.
So it's about showing that you're not just focused on individual companies, but that you understand the bigger picture, the forces that are driving the market. Exactly, that you're a well-rounded analyst who can connect the dots between the micro and the macro. It really is. It takes a sharp mind to be able to see those connections.
For sure. So what are some ways our listeners can, really demonstrate that they've got that industry insight?
Well, they can talk about the publications they follow.
Like specific journals or websites?
Exactly. The Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, the Financial Times.
Shows they're staying up to date on the latest news and trends.
Right. And they can also mention, thought leaders in the industry, people whose opinions they value.
So they're not just passively consuming information, they're actively engaging with it.
Exactly. And they should definitely be prepared to talk about specific trends they're watching.
Like what's catching their eye in the world of dividends and investments.
Right. For example, the rise of ESG investing. That's a big one.
Oh, yeah, ESG is huge right now.
Or maybe the impact of rising interest rates on dividend-paying stocks.
That's a really interesting one. So it's about showing that they're not just focused on individual companies, but that they understand the bigger picture.
Exactly. That they can see how all these different pieces fit together.
That they're a well-rounded analyst.
All right, well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. We've really dived deep into what it takes to be a successful dividend analyst.
And I have to say, I'm feeling pretty confident that our listeners are well-equipped to ace those interviews.
Me too. We've given them the tools, the insights, and even a secret weapon.
RoleCatcher. Don't forget about RoleCatcher.
Seriously, it's a game changer. But remember, preparation is key.
Practice those answers, do your research, and most importantly, show your passion.
Let that enthusiasm shine through. Good luck out there, everyone.
We're rooting for you. And that's a wrap on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the knowledge that matters most to you.